All right, we're live. We're ready to rock. Okay. Hi, everybody. Good chatting with everyone today. Lucky to have Stephanie Gubiotti with us today from Fire, and I think this is an exciting conversation to talk about from a first principles, the bigger problems we've got to solve, how technology is all layered in this, and how this is all coming together from a multifamily and I'll say property management perspective, broader speaking, and some of the big gaps we've got within the quality of the experience of working in this space, and the kind of things we want to solve to make this a much more sustainable industry for new people that are coming into it, people that are exiting it, how we're going to manage all this in between, because it is a people business, it's becoming a technology business, it is an asset business. All these things are tugging at our ability to deliver the promise that we're making to residents and clients and owners and ourselves. And so all of these things are kind of coming to a grips in terms of the way we're delivering these things. Now, the challenge that we're feeling right now is that it's kind of like everybody's problem, but no one's problem, except for what we're seeing right now with what Stephanie's driving with her team at Fire. So that's my preamble, my entry point. Hopefully that hooks you with the conversation. Thank you for everyone for joining us today. If you have any comments throughout, obviously put them in the chat window. We'll get that. And if you're listening to this later on the post live, then add any comments within the LinkedIn event. We'll get notifications of those. We can jump on that. Apple, Spotify, podcast, listening through there. Like, follow, and subscribe. That always helps us get noticed from more people. And as always, this is brought to you by IRCX. IRCX is a remote inspection and maintenance software platform for property managers, so you can know before you go and understand the possibilities that's available by being able to activate remote management, remote maintenance, including on-site and self-guided inspections. So we'll get started right away. Stephanie, a little bit about yourself. What's a problem that you solve, and what are you guys seeking to achieve with Fire? It's exciting to talk about.
I'm so excited to be here with you today. My name is Stephanie. Awesome. I'm an advisor for Fire. I started my career early as a leasing associate, worked my way up through the industry across operations and technology, across multiple well-respected real estate investment firms. And I am now serving as an advisor to Fire, which is the Foundation for Innovation in Real Estate. And I'm super excited to be here today talking about what we do. We solve a lot of problems in this space. We handle multiple different divisions. What I'm most focused on right now is our Emerging Manager Tech Council, where we have a group of around 650,000 units for multifamily in that group, where we have people who are maybe smaller portfolios and they're looking to grow and scale. So I lead that group. And we also have within that, not only multifamily, we have hospitality. So we have hotels, we have commercial, retail, and we're getting medical involved as well too. So having all of those different areas in the built world, because our concept is that we will have resources to help people. So we are a 501c3. We are fully registered as a nonprofit, and we do other areas as well. So the Emerging Manager Tech Council is how we kind of play in the sandbox, get technology moving along faster. Speed to decision is very important to us. We also have 4 therapists or coaches, depending on their certifications, that we have available. And that's for founders in the space, because it is really hard in, especially the proptech space. Being a founder is very lonely. And we found that the barrier to kind of getting into this industry is pretty hard. So the problem that we're solving is getting people resources, connections in a way that is under the nonprofit umbrella, where we aren't taking advantage of others who are trying to learn this industry and advance technology.
So it's interesting here. So you talk about the units and the different verticals within property management. Are those, and the emerging managers like business, those are active property managers, right? So you have that. And then there's the element of the proptech piece of bringing that together, so that you have the commingling of the people who have the demand for a problem, the property managers, and the people that are seeking to solve it, the proptech side of things. And then, God willing, they come together have conversations, and those conversations are productive for both sides about what's possible to solve from a property management perspective and what I should be solving from a prop tech perspective. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then before that, you were with Retsy. Now, is this emerging leaders part of the Retsy side of things, or a spinoff, or how'd that come
Yeah,
from?
so Retsy is the Real Estate Technology Transformation Center. I'm still a chair for the Emerging Leaders Program, so I do also still do that.
Mhm,
Retsy is an affiliate of National Multifamily Housing Council. And what
mhm,
I do with Retsy is I chair the 40 and under group. That is a group of us where we have people from all over industry, not just specific to multifamily. And
mhm.
what I do is help them create connections within the Retsy framework. We do get-togethers periodically, but that is separate from FIRE. FIRE is a separate nonprofit.
Mhm. But the about you, the person, you've got these different sort of like legs of the stool in terms of what you're trying to achieve for your personal mission, because it's beyond fire
Mhm.
and includes parts of Retsy and then the other things that you're doing as well, right? Is that my first call?
Yeah, totally. I'm doing
And
lots
so,
of different things. I advise a few prop tech companies. I'm on boards for a couple of companies, and I'm really enjoying being able to do all facets of the industry. I find that to be very valuable.
and you came in from property management and
Mhm.
into this space. So there was a moment where you like wanted to pursue something different than your prior property management career, but leveraging your unique experience and ability in property management to serve others. What was that like? Like, when did that happen? And that'll help us lead into the hell yes side of things.
Yeah. You know, I'm not closing any chapter of anything that I choose to do in the industry. I think there's a world in which it's very likely that I end up acquiring a portfolio, working with a team
Mhm,
to be able to do that as an operator again. Right now, I'm
mhm,
really enjoying what I'm doing with Fire. So I'm really leaning into that because it's a much broader impact than what I would be able to do for myself. The market just hasn't been there right now for a lot of deals to be transacting. So right
mhm.
now I'm focusing on fire and then leaning into the prop tech space. I think once the market shifts, I may end up going back into the real estate investment side as well.
So then why does fire like of all the things that are going on,
Mhm.
how is fire different than the other events, conferences, like objectives that's that makes it a unique experience that everyone should consider?
Yeah, it's a nonprofit. That
Yeah.
is something that, our approach is philanthropy. Our approach is to
Mhm,
give back. We don't want to just take your money so that, Matt and I and the rest of the team make money off of this and have this be the thing. Our focus is to be able to actually advance technology and innovation within this industry. So for me personally, money isn't my biggest thing that I am chasing. I want to be
mhm.
able to make an impact in this industry and in people's lives. And that is more valuable to me than being able to make money off of a real estate transaction or a prop tech exit.
Right. And so then for those that you sell to,
Mhm.
why are they attracted to fire versus all the other things that they could be doing?
Sure. Well, I'm
It's
not selling
because you still
anything.
because you're
Yeah.
still competing. Well, they're still competing, even if it's just their time. There's still a competition for their time. So, like, let's just talk about their time specifically. Why would they choose to allocate their time to an initiative that's fire related versus all the other things that people's to do list?
Sure. We do a lot with academia and
Okay.
students to be able to get access to the next level of talent in the industry. I'm not seeing that from other conferences. There's also this high barrier to entry with a lot of conferences. Because we're a nonprofit, we are neutral in the space. We play well in the
Mhm.
sandbox with everybody, meaning we're not going to charge you differently because you're a supplier partner versus an operator.
Right.
We are saying we are people together collaborating in this industry. Who are the most impressive people in operations? Who are the most
Mhm.
impressive people in technology and in innovation in these different areas? How do we then teach the next generation to be able to learn? Because as those of us who have been on site and have had those multiple hats are sort of moving into different levels in the industry. There's a lack of education that's happening at the site level from being able to kind of think bigger picture. When I think earlier in my career, when I had just a 100-unit property, I did every single thing for that entire property. And we don't have that same level of interaction today because of the changes in technology. And it's important for people to consider that as well. So what we do is help provide those resources. We also have something, the robotics program. As you know, robotics is incredibly expensive. There's a lot involved there. So we have donors who purchase space for us at different events, and then we will have robotics companies come in to be able to showcase their technologies in a way that they never would have access to.
Gotcha. And so the ultimately the chooser, I'll use the word buyer because I'll be very delicate about that, but the chooser, they want to choose fire versus the other things because of the is it the equitable part about, like, I'm trying to pull on a little bit, like, there's a lot of conferences, right? And there's been actually a lot of conversation lately of how conferences are having a hard time maybe delivering on the committed value, but we're still going to them, and maybe having a hard time making them memorable because, like, they're all in Vegas last year, and do you really remember how Redcon was different from PropTech? Like, or do you mix them up? Like they were in the same hotel. Like, it was like, it's hard to really, they're finding so there's a lot of discussion around it's hard to differentiate. And this isn't just the conference, it's more than just the conference. That's kind of the apex of the year. But then how are you beginning to manage that differentiation around how people choose to spend their time? And number one, and then ultimately, why are they choosing to be a part of FIRE? Like, what are they trying to solve internally? Like, as an example, you talked about the emerging managers that don't have line of sight into everything that happens at a property. How is that gap being presented so that they're like, I got to go find something to solve this? Where can I find that? Like, how is that emerging? So the first question is, how are you differentiating? And then for your audience that's choosing to be a part of FIRE, why are they choosing? So how differentiation, and then why are people choosing, seek to FIRE to solve their problems?
Got it. Okay. So we are differentiating again because we're kind of before people are ready for RETC, before they're ready to commit those level of fees. And, because some of those fees can add up, especially, there are startup tracks and things like that. But when you're trying to break into this space, there isn't something that serves as a nonprofit that is able to give people resources and give them good advice and guidance through this industry and space. Many of us have made decisions or seen other companies make decisions that they wish that they hadn't, and then the startup fails. Our goal is to have startups be successul if they're ready to be successful, and to actually be able to work together collaboratively. We have the academia program, which others are not doing, going to campuses, being able to work with students, at least not that I'm aware of. And again, we play well with everybody. It's not like, you shouldn't do conferences. We're supportive of them. We get complimentary tickets for our group. And a lot of times what we do is, especially for our emerging managers who maybe don't have the money to spend on going to some of these events, we'll get them free tickets. We'll give them comp passes. We also connect them with a group of LPs if they're looking to raise and they need some resources. We work with Thesis Driven. I'm not sure if you know Brad and Paul over there. They give towards our emerging managers program. Mark Chrisman, he donates towards our program. So, those types of things where we have resources that people are willing to donate to our group that they wouldn't even know about in the first place. So I think that's probably the big differentiator, is we can help you with things that you probably don't even know that you need help with, and prevent you from making mistakes that we have seen people make, because within our group and our ecosystem, we probably know somebody who has gone through what it is that you're going through and can likely help you connect with them. We also have a job board, which is something that I'm particularly proud of as well. We bring together jobs within the real estate and the proptech space to help others get jobs. And people are choosing us because they want a way to give back. They want to be able to be involved. A lot of philanthropic efforts that are happening within this space require people to physically sometimes go somewhere where this can physically come. We have Fire Summit. It's invite only. It's super exclusive for executives. We do have that as our, it's not a conference, though. There's no sales pitches. It's off the record. None of that. We are not trying to sell you anything. In fact, we are trying to advance our industry. And other ways that companies are looking to give back are perhaps creating internships for people, for our students with our intercollegiate proptech club. Other things that they're choosing to do is donate towards our mental health program and become a naming sponsor for that. It depends really on what people are most interested in across the organization, but we do have the ability to work with them of exactly where you want your dollars to go to and how we frame that and how we shape this, because we don't want it to be, Matt and Stephanie's thing. This is something that is all of ours for the industry. And, we see ourselves as stewards of being able to help people grow and advance. And I think that that is a huge differentiator in the space. And we need more people who understand operationally and in the technology space to be able to help and grow the industry and advance it together.
So, I think what I'm hearing is that for starters, completely agree, career paths and that development route is very murky no matter what role you're in within property management. It used to be fairly predictable. I'll say that probably the best worst defined, if I can put it that way, was the leasing to APM to PM to regional asset, whatever, that path. Operational didn't really have a career path at all from a maintenance perspective. It's kind of to and turn out. That's changing because of the centralization motion, because there now is a corporate function for facilities and leasing and assets, and asset management, terms become a big business. And so there's a lot of people that are kind of focusing on that from a centralized function. So there's kind of progression in there. So totally see the gap and live the gap on the grow and advance piece. And what I'm hearing is that in the grow and advance piece, and this is kind of special, is that, in order to do that growth and advance, is that intersection of technology that can be used to lever up your role within an organization, so you can move up through and understand what that looks and feels like, so that you kind of get out of the auger of your day to day. Instead of just moving something from whatever PMS 1 to PMS 2 to PMS 3, especially if you're a fee manager that has multiple PMSs they got to deal with, multiple systems, a budgeting system. We had Brian from Visibly on last week talking about how budgeting is detached from all this stuff, and all these different things to learn about technology alternatives that are out there rather than just put in your plate, and have that conversation of making life better. That makes perfect sense. Now, I also love what you talked about in terms of the making the network available, because right now it's kind of, to your point, it feels out of reach for a lot of people because of the pricing of it all and what that means. And so that's a valuable piece to it. Now, in from a not-for-profit side of things, you obviously, it's kind of like a marketplace. You've got those that you serve, and then you have the donors that come in. So why do the donors donate to Fire versus other places they can put their money to?
Great question. A great way to think about what we do is that we are essentially somebody's outsourced chief innovation officer, your head of innovation.
Okay.
So you're not needing to spend the money on that particular role within your organization and having that level of turnover. What we're able to do, because we have access and resources, is to be able to connect people across all of those areas. You won't really need a full-time role if you're strategic enough and we're able to pair together. There's a
Right.
lot of people who are choosing to donate with us versus other places. Like I mentioned, because you don't have to physically get people somewhere, you don't have to spend
Mhm.
more money to get involved with what it is that we're doing. The other thing is that they then have access to the next level of talent in the industry,
Mhm.
which,
Mhm.
as we have previously discussed, talent is something that is so hard to come by in this industry and so rare. And when we
Yeah.
have those great up and coming people, we really want to grow and nurture them. And I think it comes down to, you know, we want people who think like us and people who want to give back. And
Mhm.
I can certainly speak for myself. I wouldn't be here in my career if I didn't have leaders along the way who were very giving and who,
Right.
really showed that level of philanthropy, giving back, and how critical that is to a company culture.
Mhm.
It comes down to, yes, it's great if you want to donate to your local animal shelter. It's great if you want to donate to Red Cross. Love those things.
Mhm.
This is specific to what it is that we are doing in the industry to advance the built world and to be able to bring people together. Because if you want to be successful in the real estate space, you're going to need community. Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, the real estate space is communities over and over and over again across the world.
Right. Right. And I think that like what you achieve as well from the donor perspective is that this element of solving, like it's one thing to, like, let's use the Red Cross as an example, and by no means am I saying anything wrong with the Red Cross, but like it's an organization. It's kind of like United Way. It's kind of anonymous,
Mhm.
and you put your money there, heart and stroke, whatever, and like you don't really know what happens to it. You don't really feel a benefit from that. I mean, you got your receipt, made your donation, you feel good about it for a heartbeat, and then but then you talk about like this, you can actually see the benefits of the work that's being done because it affects the gaps that you might have in your industry. Does that
Mhm.
sound about right?
Totally. And there's, other ways that people can get involved. Something that I would really like to see is, if specifically in the maintenance side, there is a lot of skill gap in what we have kind of coming in. And I think
Mhm.
that if we were able to, via the nonprofit, work with people before they're even in college, maybe we get them introduced to a trade school, maybe we get them some facilities type training in this industry, because we are all going to need plumbers, we're all going to need electricians, we are
Yeah.
all going to need our facilities people. They're critical. And I would argue it's
Mhm.
probably the most critical role in the property operations ecosystem, because they are so intertwined with your residents day in and day out. So what I would
Yeah.
like to do is be able to provide resources. And that might mean doing things like we have, you know, owners of apartment communities that maybe donate an internship as well as a paid apartment for 6 months for somebody who maybe doesn't have those resources. That's how
Mhm.
we're going to be able to tangibly make a difference in somebody's life, because we've given them resources and access and connections plus education. So doing things like that and really cross collaborating, but that's going to involve working with owner operators and then potentially people in the tech space as well to be able to bring them
Mhm.
in. But there is a really big gap in trying to get that boots on the ground talent. And it's not always a known about industry. Most, like, I don't think I know anybody that was like, I'm going to be in property management, or I'm going to do this when I grow up. Like, we all kind of fall into it and we go
Yeah.
along the way. Uh, but I think it would be really great via the nonprofit to be able to bring more awareness to that so that we are able to encourage and educate people.
It's funny. Like, I don't. Do you know Chelsea Nealand? She tells a
Yeah.
story how she got, to your point, how everyone gets into it, falls into it. She was working a kind of a retail job, and uh, an APM or PM came in and said, "Hey, you've got a great smile. You should start in leasing." And then like now look where she is right now, right? It's just like it's kind of crazy how she got into it completely detached from what her core unique ability is, but she's able to actually like lead and mind share and do the things that she's amazing at in this space. But that's not how she got into it. She got into it because she's got a wonderful smile, and she's great, and she's incredibly congenial and
Mhm.
someone you want to be with and hang around with. And boom, that opened the door for her to be able to show the world how incredible she is at research and conclusion and leading. It's wild.
Yeah, and I have certainly hired many of people when I go to check into a hotel, like if they're really nice, like, would you like a job
For
in the
sure.
real estate space?
For
We have
sure.
better hours in the real estate space than the hotel space if you would like to be in multifamily. A little bit more predictable versus 24 hours, which is hotels.
Yeah.
Also restaurants too. I think that's always like a great place to find people. But yes, Chelsea is fantastic.
So when you look at the world, like the big problem we've got is, I mean, so there's things that are true. We know that there's going to be more units than we have today
Mhm.
in 5 years. So, we're 45 million overall rentals, 15 of that is single family. So let's call it 30 in multifamily, plus the commercial, plus the student, plus the other ones. I don't know a number on that. So there's a big pool of it, and it's going to get bigger. We're going to be adding, I don't know, maybe 400. I don't know what the forecast is for the next couple of years, but let's call it a million units every 3 years, probably 300,000 to 400,000 a year. So those are going to require a whole lot more people to manage. Now we are getting better at some of the operations. We don't use as much people to do it, but we still need people. It's still a people business,
Mhm.
and the caliber of the people is getting higher because it's kind of more organized and more, there's more technology involved. And you're seeing a huge gap and you're hearing a huge gap in terms of we don't have the people to manage these properties anymore. So it doesn't matter if we build an amazing building, it still needs people to run it.
Mhm.
And the gap in order to realize those returns on those assets is a pool of individuals that want to do this work, are able, they get it, they want it, and they have the capacity. Get it, they understand the business of property management. And
I
the
see
different
you with that
varieties of it all.
EOS GWC in there.
Oh, you got that, hey? And then and then they want it because they see a career path ahead of them that's pretty murky right now,
Mhm.
and the capacity is something you can be taught. So
Mhm.
like I'm trying to hearing what you're talking about. It's like that part right there is the get it, want it part. And maybe
Mhm.
because everybody, this is just turning on for me in real time, is like everybody falls into it, but why is that? We kind of pull at that thread a little bit. Did everybody get it when they first got into it? They kind of just like were a good fit for personality wise. Like tell your story, your story. And then like, did everybody eventually want it when they saw that they eventually want it when they saw the career paths emerge before them? But nobody started on day zero with a get it, want it perspective. And so the capacity to be able to do the job is something that, evolved. I mean, I seem to think that it happened. Didn't make it happen. It happened to them.
Mhm.
Whereas like there's a bit of luck, a bit of circumstance, a bit of timing, and that's how your career path evolved. And what you're talking about with fire is really formalizing the education around what this career can look like, the
Mhm.
the wealth and the value that can be created depending on your roles, and then ultimately um, helping those people understand that there's a path forward for everyone in this industry.
Mhm.
Because ultimately, if we don't fill this gap, that's kind of the question I go to you: is it what happens if we don't fill the gap for emerging leaders?
I think that if we don't fill the gap for emerging leaders, people will spend a lot of money being frustrated in the space because they're not able to. What I see is that technology partners aren't able to find innovative operators who are willing to play in the sandbox with them
Mhm,
in order to be able to advance.
mhm,
Um, I also see that uh, there's a real gap because what you're selling to within 500 units versus 300,000 units, it's very, 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 very different.
mhm,
So I continue to see um, a lot of skill gaps there. And
mhm,
and I think if we don't lean in here, there's going to be a lot of vacancies that leads to poor resident retention. It leads to the assets not being maintained well enough in the ways that they
Mhm.
should be.
Mhm.
And it also leads to your good people being burnt out. I can't tell you how
Mhm.
many times I've been short-staffed at a property and I've had, one of my best maintenance supervisors. But
Mhm.
if they are the only one doing that, then they're the ones taking on call. There's a heavy level involved with that. And another thing that I think, I personally would like to bridge a little bit of the gap with is the way that we exit within proptech and real estate is just as important as the way that we come into the space.
Okay.
Meaning, when you sell your property and all of those team members may or may not have a job again, that's something that is a really big gap in the industry. And I think that it is a barrier to entry of people who are trying to choose real estate versus something else. Because,
Mhm.
for example, if you're with a small to mid-size owner operator and there's only a few properties in a certain area, you live on site, you find out that they're going to sell the property.
Mhm.
Okay, then what happens? They sell the property. If you're not offered a new position or they don't have another position, you have to start with a brand new company. That often means that people who are typically not making above 6 figures are having to then change health insurance, perhaps pay Cobra for a period of time. And it's kind of this thing that's unseen and not talked about in the industry of how impactful that is to that site team level. And
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of people actually leave the industry because they're like, yeah, I don't want to go through that again. It's too risky. So I'd like to, from a nonprofit perspective, be able to collaborate of like, how do we create some sort of a program for people who are really talented, and if they just are going through a sale or transition and there's not space for them, how do we help them? And I see that
Mhm.
as the job board too, but I see that as being something that um, it's a real source of anxiety for people in the field that many aren't willing to talk about with their leadership because it's just a vulnerable thing to talk about.
Interesting. Do you find it? So if I think about the people that you serve, is the target, I'll call it -2, meaning 2 years before they apply for their first job, and then the next 5 years? Like, is that kind of like where you feel like the gap is the greatest?
I think there's a lot of gaps. I think if we start looking at maybe the NMHC top 50, we want to focus
Mhm.
there. What I see as speed to decision is the skill gap in those larger firms of being able to have an organized way to efficiently move technology in and out.
Mhm.
And so I think that's that side of the skill gap. Yes, there's the skill gap of, and what we're training for is coming into the industry. It's also being able to help people cross collaborate and getting them
Mhm.
those resources. Because again, you kind of just don't know what you don't know. And I'm sure you feel the same way. This is such a big industry. And yes, it's like 1 to 2 degrees of separation. It's rare to
Sure.
kind of
Totally.
not know somebody. Um, but I think that the more that we're moving forward with technology, the more that we need to lean into these connections. And I think that that's the gap that we kind of bridge is we
Mhm.
aren't just one event, we aren't just one thing, we exist all year round and we have multiple layers.
So when you talk about resources, like what kind of resources are they? Like what is like, can you give me an example of if you've got somebody who's an emerging manager and they want to activate out a resource, what's that
Mhm.
resource look and feel like? Is it a coach? Is it materials? Is it a course? Is it a presentation? Is it like, I don't know,
Yeah.
other
So
things?
it really depends on a couple of different things. It depends on what it is
Sure.
that they're looking for. Because what I try to do, Matt and I both, we try to work with people and say, okay, what are your goals? What are you trying to do? And kind of create a custom plan for how we can support that particular team. So it may be that they want to grow their brand awareness. Great, we'll get you on stage with us at
Mhm.
conferences and events and something that, would be great for you to speak about. We will get you discount codes or free things to certain events that you may not have the funds to pay for. We will get you connected with LPs or perhaps some GPs to raise money. I will spend time with them. Matt will spend time with them. I mean, we cross collaborate, and then we also, you came from outside the industry, so I'd love to know what your first experience was at like an event, but I can't imagine kind of coming from the outside of coming into it. And so I try to think of it from that perspective of how overwhelming it is to go to a conference with 3,000 people and you don't know really anybody. And I'm happy to take people around, make introductions, and help them kind of bridge those gaps. So it's a lot of soft things as well as tangible as well. And I think the more that we have donors, again, the more that we're able to grow and expand that. And I think, people who are interested in donating will have other ideas that we've never thought about in ways to give back.
Yeah. I mean, it is an interesting industry to kind of get into. And admittedly, the reason this whole show started was because I didn't know the industry. And so this is a bit, for everyone that's an audience member, they know that I'm learning this in real time in front of everybody else. This is a bit courageous, maybe a bit foolish at the same time. But the reason is that I got lucky. So my whole introduction to property management, I was at South by Southwest by chance, and I ran into a gal named Amy Povada. And Amy runs the U.S. PropTech Council, and she just founded it, months prior. So I said, well, hey, I can help you there. I'm good at this stuff. And then Amy introduced me to Chris Kimbrough shortly thereafter. And then Chris introduced me to a whole bunch of other folks. And so it was this progression. And then from there, I ran into Amy. Amy's out of Austin. So then I was back in Austin again for a conference and literally just showed up and hung out at the bar because I didn't even know what to do and just talk to people. So talking to people all the time helped me kind of iterate on, who cares about this problem and who doesn't care about this problem. Then got lucky. So where I've had a lot of luck is I'm not afraid to put myself forward, not afraid to kind of enter a conversation and disclose that I don't know what I'm talking about. And then the third part is I've been really lucky with some of the people that I've connected with. And randomly, I've had incredible connections with some very good people that have become very good friends of mine. Adrian Danilla, Tony Souza, great friends of mine. Just the list goes on and on and on in terms of people that have voluntarily offered to help. So I think what's interesting about the gap that you're closing is that there are people in this industry that actually want to help other people. I've never been in an industry with such response to, I don't understand this problem, and then a willingness to show me how that problem is solved. That's been outstanding. I've learned so much in the last 2 years by engaging with folks and constantly seeking to engage and learn at a higher level. Like we just had folks on yesterday on the show from a debt perspective, Darren Gruner from the SFR side of things, from a debt side of things, because then I can start piecing together all the different parts of this whole industry, bringing my understanding of how this whole thing comes together, and being able to form from my opinion, my way of learning of it all, like starting at operations, expanding into leasing, having an understanding. Ian Bingham, another guy who's helped me out a ton, having an understanding in multifamily, and then having an understanding of how SFR BTR is different, and then understanding the differences between owner operators and fee managers, where Cole comes help me out with that. And so just being able to kind of double click on the different nuances of it all, because we'd like to lump it all into one big industry, property management, but student is different from high rise is different than low rise, luxury is different than everything, affordable is totally different, got different rules to it. And then you get into military, you get into workforce, and then you get into development and all those different parts. They're all different, but it's all like one big huge box. And you feel vulnerable when you have those conversations at first. So you got to kind of keep those conversations really, I wouldn't say exploratory, not guarded, but exploratory, seeking to understand. And then you can begin to form your opinion on what needs to be done. So my journey, I need to close a gap because I sell software, but you're helping out. You're kind of formalizing that same journey that I did on my own with the help of a band of people, right? And had resources to be able to do that. And, I closed my own gap, but closing, I don't think we'll ever close. I'm closing my own gap. But at the same time, you're helping formalize that for people that are coming into the industry that are working a day job and maybe on a site level and do not understand the overall business of their business. Because like if they're working for an owner operator or even a REIT, it's a different business than if you're working for a fee manager. Like the NOI drivers for a REIT are different than an owner operator. And then a fee manager, by the way, they don't make NOI, they deliver NOI, right? So delivering NOI is different than making NOI. And you got to know that that's different because they're going to have different buying motivations and they're going to have different gaps in their organizations because their drivers are different. And so like understanding those drivers, and then of course it gets into the balance sheet part of the business, which is a different animal as well, but all falls into the same business. And so like that, and one thing that that I'm not able to do it because I don't have the background or the credibility, but like in order for this industry as a whole to become, to your point earlier about maintenance and site level people, but in order for this industry to be sustainable in the long run, we have to begin to educate a level of financial literacy around the business that they're in at the site level. And because the people that are operating at the site level, they need to understand that how NOI affects the cap rate, how capital versus discretionary versus expense beside budgeting, how property tax, interest, insurance, all that affects the overall start of a business, why leasing is so important, and understanding that whole structure of the P&L statement. Because ultimately, if we're going to really have progression in these careers in this industry, there has to be people that are promote worthy, right? Because like if we start bringing in people like me into the industry that didn't spend time on site, have experience in other industries, I'm going to have to take that learning curve to learn what's happening within multifamily or the other verticals and do that independent of my ability to add value. And so that can do a couple good things. It could bring in new ideas, which I think this industry needs so bad. It could bring in new technology, which I think this industry needs so bad. But it's gonna come with a bit of friction. Because like someone like me needs to have 150 getting held LES shows to actually learn about this industry wholesomely versus, understanding it when I come into it. Like the get it part, right? The get it part is something that needs to emerge and evolve, and it's a big gap. So that's what I keep hearing is that gap of like, where are these next leaders going to come from? You're passionate Retsy, you're passionate in the under 40, you're passionate with fire, and your ability to deliver on those commitments by connecting them with mentors, donors, advocates within the industry to be able to enable this. Because they recognize that if we don't solve this problem, the 0 to 5 career year people, we're going to have a big problem running these businesses. Because like eventually they want to retire, they want to move on, and the backfill just isn't emerging because of the competition for good talent, especially in asset-related industries. There's entire verticals that are emerging that didn't exist before. Like you could talk to somebody who's like a VP of asset management. When they started, they didn't have a data center choice. They didn't have, pick your other asset vertical that's emerging. They didn't have that choice. And so we're competing with those people, private equity getting into the game for maintenance and operations people. So like those choices didn't exist. So it might have been simpler. And so like the stress, the anxiety, all those choices come from a lack of understanding.
Well, not only that, but I think, something lack
of clarity and lack of understanding. Sorry.
Yeah. Something that I saw over and over and over in my career is people making technology choices and decisions that they didn't understand the implications of and how broad that could affect their business. So, for example, if you're rolling out a brand new property management system, why is it so important to be able to have that data migration? Do you know about lease documents and merge fields? And do you understand that if you're implementing a new CRM, that needs to talk to if you're using revenue management and how that's going to show up on your websites. How is that going to interact with your AI bot? These are all things that didn't need to be thought about years ago. And the
Right.
amount of change management that, we're able to help people avoid the bumps and bruises through, that is worth a donation all day long.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
your website goes down, you're not leasing, and let's just say the average vacancy lots, let's call it $50 a day. It adds up. And when you're looking at where do you want to spend your time, money, energy, effort, and how do you want to leave this industry? And I think that is really important. I personally would like to leave this industry better than how I found it. And it's something that I think we have a lot of opportunity to do. And there's a lot of political changes. There's a lot of, this concept of the landlord sort of being the bad guy, when at the end of the day, I can tell you, I have always been very passionate about providing good, clean places to call home for people. And most people in this industry, as you've mentioned, we are like aggressively helpful. And so,
awesome.
Yeah. That's kind of what I would like to leave, is that, let's not make those same mistakes, and let's learn from those things. Let's be good to one another. And one of the things that I love about proptech is because it is so big, there is a world in which everybody can win, because you can have multiple of the same thing. There's a huge market there.
It feels like the gap that you're closing is like the career path, in especially the early years of career path in property management. It's like a hard mode. And how can we make this easy mode for everybody? Right. And if we make it an easy mode, then we can, it's going to be easier for everybody else downstream from a profitability and ROI perspective, or asset valuation, depending on your seat, or even just winning fees, right? Because they're going to understand the nature of the business, and that's just not being provided. Now, I got a question for you. So, like, for the individual companies, even let's say mid-size fee manager, not so much top 50, but somewhere in that like 10,000, 15,000 unit space. Why are they not motivated? Because they seem, because they move faster than the top 50, right? So how are they closing this gap right now? Or is it just a risk they just live with?
Well, that's really kind of the sweet spot that we have found, is that asset size, that's really where speed to decision is important. That's really where my focus is groups and organizations within that level. We do have some larger players, of course, but those groups are the ones that I think have enough resources to be innovative, and that they're able to kind of execute internally. One of the things that we also do is provide free pilot docs that we've had. Some of our donors are, we've got Stack Point, Goodwin Law. Goodwin Law went through, had all multiple attorneys from their firm. We've had some others go through it to make sure that, again, we have pilot docs. You can just put in your KPIs, and then we're using technology faster, because it's like, yeah, this is a really cool thing. Let's try it. The other thing that we're able to do is kind of explain to people, maybe provide recommendations for best use of their funding, depending on where they are. If somebody is pre-seed, maybe you don't need to spend $100,000 going to an event. Like, we help people avoid wasting money on things that they shouldn't.
Right. When you're out there talking, so then, I kind of like rounding it out. We've got kind of three choosers, buyers, choosers. You've got your proptech company organization. You've got your, I'll say, -2 to 5-year career person. So before they even know about the industry, like you mentioned, the college years, when they start in their first 5 years. And then you've got your donors that are, veterans in the industry that see the gaps that need to be closed. And so bringing together the veterans, the early start, emerging leaders, and then the technology prop tech folks.
And
We create a
capital. The other thing is we give them access to capital.
Okay, so and capital like that brings us quite a it's a catalytic conversation, right? Because you've got people that have capital to invest, you've got people that are energized about their career, you've got people who know the big like the high level gaps and the problems, and you've got technology folks that want to have these things solved. So those four individuals can kind of make anything happen, right? Because you've kind of got everything you need. You got the steering, the horsepower, the problem, the roadmap. So like in that context, like how it's hard to get all those four people, all those four different stakeholders bought in. So like, and then we'll transition after this, but like how do you get those four stakeholders bought in on solving the problem, which I think you've done a great job of articulating, that you need those four people bought in to solve the problem. So how do we get those four, because it's not wholly owned by each person, each stakeholder, how do you get them together to agree that it's they're complicit in the problem by not trying to solve it, or they can be attributable to solving the problem if they commit to trying to solve it? They're part of it. Like those four stakeholders, it may not be on their top of their to-do list, but it's something that they have to bear the pain of it not existing. So how do they get involved? How do they choose and find this?
Well, I think the main thing is finding like-minded people. And people who have that philanthropic mindset and want to give back and see that there's a broader picture. You know, I'm not saying that you have to donate to us, but you should donate somewhere to something, because it's good for just personal well-being. It's good for your organization to have a philanthropic approach. So I'm not saying, you know, of course we would love for you to donate to FIRE because it's within, you know, our specific industry, but broadly, people should be donating more than what is happening. And getting people who have that same thought process together, people who are willing to be creative, and people who have felt the pain of those interactions not working out. I mean, how many times as an operator have we gotten to the point where we're in implementation and then we find out something is wrong and it has cost us weeks of work? And when you start to add together that money and time, because time is money, that's, you know, what you're saving.
Wow. If you go back and take a look at kind of like because you've got a really dynamic career with respect to the things that you've been involved with, from an operator into to the technology pieces, then now on the philanthropic side, like what kind of advice would you give yourself when you first started, that given what you know now?
I wish I had thicker skin earlier.
Okay.
You know, I think that it took me a while. I'm still, you know, I'm soft-hearted, but that's probably why working at a nonprofit is so good for me.
Sure.
But, you know, I think that I would try to teach myself to, I don't want to say care less, but try to keep things at a little bit more of arm's length. And I would have stood up for myself differently in certain situations than I did before. So I think really just, I think I probably would be a little bit stronger in hindsight.
Well, I mean, and to give yourself some permission here, like, how your personality is to take things personal. Like, it's to say, you know, take things personally can be a detriment to someone who's, the fact that you take things personally is why you are more mission driven than the average bear. And so that's kind of like, maybe there's a filter on it, and to not take things so personally, but take all things personal. Like, it's kind of a weird thing to kind of coach on. Because there are some things you got to shake off, Taylor Swift. But there are some things you got to act on, right? You got to make sure that you actually, you care. You can't care about everything, but you got to care about something.
And I care a lot.
You care a lot, right? Like you're like
Care
all
Bear.
RPMs. They're all RPMs. So it's like it's something that is like it's important to understand, I guess, the things you got to care about.
Mhm.
Because like otherwise there's really no point in getting up in the morning.
Yeah.
You know, you got to care about something.
Mhm.
And so like the thing, and those things have to give permission to yourself, to oneself, to allow those things to change. Because like they're going to ebb and flow throughout your life. And that's called life. That's the journey. If you
Mhm.
don't pursue life like it's a journey, you'll find it's kind of boring. And you know, that's something that's quite exciting and why I love the question, because like your advice to yourself, then, you know, to have thicker skin could also be why you're so good right now at what you're doing. And so
Yeah.
it's remarkable how our career begins to shape itself and reflect what we're best at in the world. And that's kind of like, I don't know, it's something that I'm also, you know, seeking to understand more about myself, is that what's my unique ability? What am I best in the world at? Because it's not entirely clear to me, even this deep into my career. But it's an adventure and a journey that is worth playing.
Mhm.
Like there is no game over in my life. It is just, let's go figure out the next puzzle. Let's go figure out the next thing. Because I'm finding that throughout my journey, I'm learning more about myself that I didn't know before. And that is actually making it easier to sleep at night, but easier to actually understand why I do the things that I do.
Mhm.
And that brings peace into what you're talking about earlier about anxiety, lowers my anxiety level and lowers my, and I'll say better frames my understanding of kind of the things that I'm able to do.
Mhm.
So it makes for some exciting times when you think about advice about thicker skin. If you turn that around and say, what's the opposite of that? You probably didn't want that either.
It's true.
Right? Because you wouldn't be where you are today. So that's exciting to hear you say that, because it is a vulnerable moment to say that out loud. And my counter
Especially
is
on the
that,
live.
yeah, and my counter to that is that, you know, you might not be where you are today if you had a thicker skin. And
Sure.
so it's persistence and resilience through those things that get to where you are today.
Mhm.
That's exciting, right? Is the opportunity to be able to understand your level of vulnerability and your willingness to do it, because it's not everybody's willing to go there.
Well,
That
I do
helps you
think
learn more
that
from other people.
yeah, I mean, I think that I have this ability to really sit with people when they're going through hard things too, and be able to connect with them
Mhm.
in a way that not a lot of people can.
Yeah.
And I've been able to build some really meaningful relationships because of that.
Yeah. Because you go more in than the average person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. There you go. Who should we have on next on the show?
Ooh.
The toughest question of the usually of the session.
Have you had Matt on yet?
No, I don't know Matt.
Okay, Matt Knight. I work with him
Yeah.
at Fire. You should definitely know him. He's fantastic.
Okay.
Have
We'll
you
connect.
had anybody from 100 on before?
No, yeah, we had just before the
Yes,
break, we had Lucas.
okay. What
Yeah,
about Kira? Have you had anybody on
I like
from them?
Kira. No, that wasn't Kira.
Joe D. Ray.
Jody Ray. I just saw him on my feed the other day.
Yeah,
I'll reach out to him.
he is in my emerging leaders group with Retzi.
I'll reach out to him. Someone else had mentioned him a while back. I think I reached out to him, but just, you know, who knows? I'll ping him. We'll tag him on the show. So Matt Knight, Jody Ray, you're going to get tagged in the show, and we'll follow up with you there.
Yeah, and I'll look through for anybody who's listening to this in the Retzi Emerging Leaders program. If you would like an intro, I'm happy to make an intro to Guillermo. So this is the type of stuff that I do, is like somebody who maybe wants to do those things in their career, learn these new ways. Maybe they've never done a podcast before. I'll work with them to have that connection. And obviously Joe and Matt have done podcasts before, but you know, if somebody hasn't, what I'll do is like help prep them in advance and kind of hype them up and be their cheerleader in their career.
That's outstanding. Well, love to hear your passion for this emerging leader. Certainly it's a gap that's got to, I mean, if it doesn't close, we're a real problem, right? Because like we're not going to parachute in folks with all of a sudden that kind of operating experience. It's particularly as it relates to the business and to know where the business is going, you have to know where the business was. And so that's helpful to understand the context of what's possible within this industry. Thank you so much for your time. I think that your advice to yourself about thicker skin is valuable to kind of sit in for a bit and think about the implications of what if you didn't, Yeah. I certainly the work that you're doing right now that is filling your cup is a function of something that you're deeply personal about. And ultimately, if we're not doing things we personally care about, like it's an exhausting day, And so it's thrilling to hear how you're so excited about this and all the work you're doing with FIRE. And so best way to get a hold of you about FIRE, the conference or the organization, is through how?
My email at FIRE, stephanie@innovatere.org.
All right. And FIRE stands for?
Foundation for Innovation in Real Estate.
Wonderful.
And our email or our website is innovatere.org.
Very good. Cool. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Next week.
Oh, yeah, right. Go find you at the bottom of the, it's at Cosmopolitan, right?
Aria.
Okay. So everyone meet at the bottom of the escalators. That's where everyone meets.
Yes.
A little bar on the right side, bottom of the right side of the escalators. So you can see you there.
We have specific conference bars for each one.
Oh, good. Yeah. If you go and say meet you at the food court upstairs, forget it. That's insanity. You're not going to get anywhere.
You got to go lobby bar.
Lobby bar. All right. Well, thanks everyone for taking the time today. Again, if you're listening to the podcast, like, subscribe, follow. It always makes it easier to find. If you're listening on the live on LinkedIn or through the shorts, so you get any questions or comments, throw them in the thread there. We'll get pinged and notified on that and jump on. Thank you, Stephanie, so much for all the work that you're doing to kind of close that gap on these emerging leaders, create a career for people, add sustainability to this business, and then of course introducing the technology people in that conversation so we make a better business for everybody. Thanks everyone for listening today. This was awesome, a super enlightening conversation. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
And we're done. Thanks a lot. That was awesome.